I want to say this. I want to say this very carefully and very respectfully. Ashli Babbitt is my George Floyd. Now, what I mean by that is not what people think I mean. George Floyd, I believe, and his death are reasons to believe, or there are other countervailing arguments that he died from a drug overdose and not necessarily from a asphyxiation or obstruction of the airwaves, Officer Chauvin. You know it and I know it. Because that's the narrative of the left. He became their, I don't know, their martyr. But there is final justice that is owed to Ashli Babbitt. And a nation still demands answers. Now remember, whatever you think Ashli Babbitt did, she did not deserve to be shot. This was an incompetent, overreacting Capitol Police person who shouldn't have had a gun. That's what this is about. She didn't die from an overdose. She was in a demonstration where people were let in. Does this man have training? Is that it? They knew what was happening. They could have secured the door. They could have done a show of force, whatever it was. I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with her motives. Not her. Well, motives maybe is okay, but her actions. That's not the issue. Remember, shoplifting is wrong, but shooting somebody in Target because they put a packet of pork chops under their dress is unwarranted. It's the reaction. It's the proportionality. So, what appears to be in a long-awaited move that has, I hope, reignited I hate to use that term, but a firestorm of public opinion. The DOJ has agreed to a settlement in principle with the husband and estate of Ashli Babbitt. She, of course, was the Air Force veteran, shot, fatally shot, murdered. Forget this, more fatally shot, murdered, shot, dead, unnecessarily by an overreacting, untrained, unqualified security guard during the tragic events of January 6, 2021. Now, this comes nearly 4 years after Babbitt was gunned down, murdered in the halls of the U.S. Capitol. And it marks a significant turning point in a case that has, well, polarized the nation even more. It split public opinion, raised foundational questions about accountability and transparency and justice, and, again, causes us to look at the American political system. So Ashli Babbitt's family, represented by Judicial Watch, filed a $30 million wrongful death lawsuit against the federal government, specifically targeting Lieutenant Michael Byrd, the Capitol Police. Funny how his name is never. We know about Derek Chauvin and all of the police officers involved in the overdose of George Floyd, but yet nobody knows his name. Michael Byrd, Lieutenant. I'm not going to make any DEI references, but you do the math. Lieutenant Michael Byrd, he is a Capitol Police officer who shot dead a protester who did not brandish a gun, but was coming through a door. Do they have training? I guess not. So while official accounts from the DOJ and the U.S. Capitol Police cleared Byrd of wrongdoing, does that surprise you? The lawsuit painted a vastly different picture. One of an unarmed woman trapped and cornered, ambushed without warning or lawful cause. Isn't that something? Now, this is a reframed tragedy. The suit alleges that Ashli Babbitt was intentionally shot and killed without justification, and that her death was an ambush. Multiple witnesses reportedly screamed in horror immediately after the shot rang out, with some shouting, "You just murdered her." These cries echoed through the rotunda and across social media platforms, forming, I think, the earliest pieces and fragments of what would eventually become a national movement seeking truth about her killing. And the Biden administration and the Biden DOJ obfuscated and hid as much as they could. Now, for many Americans, particularly those aligned with the populist and conservative movements, Ashli Babbitt has become a symbol a veteran, a patriot, a protester. Babbitt was unarmed when she was shot. She was not carrying a weapon, not attacking an officer, not harming anyone. What she was doing, arguably recklessly, we could say that, of course. I wouldn't do that, but I'm not the gold standard of culpability. What she was doing was attempting to climb through a broken window into a secured hallway. But whether that justified the use of deadly force has been debated ever since. So, Judicial Watch steps in. Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch, confirmed via social media that the settlement had been reached in principle, marking a major legal milestone. The full amount and terms have not yet been disclosed, but the agreement avoids a potentially explosive public trial scheduled for July of next year. A trial that would have forced, invariably, the government to produce documentation, videos, emails, communications relating to Byrd's actions, internal disciplinary records, full discovery, and the police justifications for using lethal force on an unarmed protester. Right? As Mr. Fitton stated, quote, and I quote, "The facts speak truth." Indeed. In fact, in the court of public opinion, Ashli Babbitt's death has always raised more questions than answers. Why was there no warning before Byrd fired? Why? Why was no attempt made to physically detain her instead? Why did she pose a deadly force threat against him? She wasn't armed with anything. Police can't shoot somebody just because somebody approaches them. Haven't you watched any YouTube videos yet? Haven't you seen traffic stops? People come after, they swing at cops. They can't pull a gun out and shoot them. You don't do this. No pepper spray, no taser, no nothing, no support, no battering, nothing. You just can't pull a gun out and shoot somebody who comes after a cop. Unless the cop is in this new phalanx, this new iteration of police officers, like those clueless dweebs and nitwits who fell asleep during the Epstein murder. Come on. Why has Lieutenant Byrd, unlike other officers involved in fatal shootings, why was he's never faced trial, never faced discipline, never faced even a formal reprimand, nothing, drop in pay, nothing, demotion? This is, to put it mildly, a divided narrative. You know, the federal government and mainstream media painted Byrd as some kind of hero, a man who stopped a potentially dangerous mob from breaching the speaker's lobby and entering secure areas. That's nonsense. But to Babbitt's family and millions of Americans like you and me, the narrative doesn't even hold water. In fact, it exposes a double standard, which is now indicated as how justice is applied. Would any other police officer be exonerated so quickly for shooting an unarmed woman without a warning? Imagine a police officer firing on an unarmed protester during a BLM march. Without a warning, without a weapon, and without being under physical threat. Imagine that. There would be riots that would make the George Floyd riots look like nothing. The nation would have erupted in calls for reform. No justice, no peace. Al Sharpton, indictments, protests. The canonization, the beatification, the elevation. Indictments, sweeping policy changes. Yet, Babbitt's death was buried, literally, figuratively, like it never happened. We must look at President Trump's voice for justice. President Donald J. Trump has remained one of the few high-profile figures to consistently demand justice for Ashli Babbitt. He has spoken passionately about her case, highlighted the alleged cover-ups, and offered her incredible support for her family. In speeches and interviews and social media posts, President Trump has referred to Babbitt as a martyr. And that term is not overused, as a martyr, and has repeatedly demanded that the Department of Justice revisit her case. So in many ways, my dear friend, my dear fellow patriot, this settlement is a partial vindication, not just for Babbitt's family, but for every American who believes in equal justice under the law. It represents a rare admission, however subtle, that something about this case did not sit right. Now remember, settlement is not closure. Make no mistake, a settlement is not justice. A settlement avoids a trial. It shields officials from cross-examination, avoids public release of evidence, and prevents real accountability. It also provides compensation. Yes, this is true, but it does not answer the questions that still linger. What are those questions? What were Lieutenant Byrd's instructions and orders that day? Were alternative methods of detainment and suppression considered? Number 3, why were there no disciplinary measures at all? And number 4, who ordered the quick closure of the investigation? This is what we want to know. Ashli Babbitt's death is not just about one woman or one protest. It represents protest. It represents a broader crisis of confidence in America's institutions. You see, the public saw, yet again, 2 sets of rules, the double standard. 2 sets emerge in real time. Rioters and looters in the summer of 2020 were coddled. Okay? Coddled. Police were told to stand down. But on January 6th, deadly force was used without hesitation against an unarmed veteran who posed no direct threat. Okay? This is a new chapter in a larger war, my friends. You see, the significance of this settlement goes beyond the money. It is a crack, a fissure in the wall of silence. It's a sign that even the federal government cannot entirely dodge responsibility when faced with, in this case, hard evidence and public pressure and moral outrage. It should embolden others who have been silenced or discouraged from seeking justice. It should serve as a reminder that the truth eventually surfaces and that the wheels of justice will slow. And they'll slow down, but even though they're slow, they still turn. So Ashli Babbitt's name will not disappear into the footnotes of history. See, CNN wants her gone. They despise her. But George Floyd, oh, that man is, that's the Joan of Arc. It's the St. Stephen. It's the martyr for their cause, but not us. She has become, in our circles, a rallying cry for those who demand truth, accountability, and constitutional consistency and transparency. And the very fact that this case has not simply faded away is a testament to the tireless efforts of her family, legal advocates, and supporters across the country like you. So, is this final justice? True justice would have meant a public trial, full transparency, heads rolling, and consequences for any wrongful actions. But in today's America, even partial acknowledgement can be revolutionary. You see, this element is not the end. It is the beginning of a renewed push for transparency and the rule of law. And as Mr. Fitton said, quote, God bless America, indeed, and may God bless Ashli Babbitt. May her memory be a reminder, listen to me, that justice must never be selective, and that every American and every American life, regardless of politics, still matters. What do you think, dear friend? Let me know. Weigh in. Answer the questions that are attended to or that are appended, and let me know. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell so you're notified of live streams and new videos, and whatever you do, I ask you to comment as you see fit.